Almost 80% of the ocean hasn't been discovered. What are you most likely to find there? 80% of what we have discovered down there are creatures straight out of a horror story, so it's likely we'll discover something even more horrifying. I was just watching a video yesterday of 20 of the craziest animals from the deep sea, and I got to thinking that I don't know why we go around pretending monsters don't exist. Some of the things down there couldn't be described as anything beside that. If you've never seen or heard of a Komodo dragon, lion or bear before, and stumbled on one in the wild with no understanding of the origin of this creature, your first thought would be WTF is this monster trying to kill me? A real life monster is just something you don't have any knowledge of yet. Anything monstrous quickly becomes just another animal as soon as you learn it exists. Yeah, that was pretty much my thought process. We always act like whatever we discover at the bottom would be terrifying and be called a monster, but in actuality we try to study out of it and it would just become another thing that exists with us, or we'll wake it from its eternal slumber and all go mad. Who knows? Plus they live at the bottom of the ocean. It's not like they can hurt anybody. Now if they were sneaking into people's bedrooms at night it'd be a different story. Cities of academic fish pondering what they'll find on the 80% of land they haven't explored. They explored 20%? Fish aren't as dumb as you think. They aren't caught by fishermen because they don't know what a hook is. The bravest warriors of the fish society sacrifice themselves and bite the hook on purpose. If they are lucky, they will be thrown back into the drink and now they can tell the other fish what they have seen. That's how they explored 20%. There are fish everywhere on our planet. Whether it's the sea, a lake, a river or even a small creek. They have their eyes everywhere. But how do they exchange information from a creek fish to a sea fish, you may ask? Well, salmon are the messengers of the fish world. That's why they travel up and down the rivers once a year. Not to reproduce, that's just concealment. They do in fact carry valuable information. Edit, spelling. By the way guys, if you are enjoying this video so far, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It will help us out quite a bit, and if you don't enjoy the videos in the future anymore, you can always unsubscribe. Let's get back to the video. I imagine there is some kind of absolutely huge lobster down there. Deep sea gigantism is a thing. Giant isopods, squid, spider crabs, and sea are all far larger than their relatives that live closer to the surface. There's also the fact that lobsters never stop growing until they die and do not suffer negative effects of aging. Basically, I just wanted to talk about lobsters for a minute. Did you know lobsters have at least two Did you know lobsters attract mates by out of their eyes? Lobsters are cool as I love information about lobsters, but I did learn recently that they do have a size limit. It's mostly due to becoming too big to move/eat. Also, the larger they get the thicker the shell has to be to hold back the pressure, so they do have an upper limit. It's massive though. Also, lobsters need to shed their shells every so often. Sometimes they are eaten when they are doing this, but some older crabs and lobsters physically do not have the energy to molt and grow a new shell and die of exhaustion. Look up lobster molting if you think you can handle it. Now it makes it worse. Imagine seeing a big lobster shell, knowing that it simply means there's a bigger one out there now. MH370. This is a great article with a very plausible theory on what may have happened. Edit, TLDR. Pilot was assumed to be clinically depressed based on interviews with friends and family, planned possible mission on flight simulator game, killed all passengers, and remaining crew painlessly within minutes by depressurizing cabin, while he himself wore a specialized pilot's air pressure mask before setting course over the Indian Ocean, flew for a few more hours until sunrise. Then manually crashed the plane down into the ocean to die on impact, assuming he didn't want to accidentally survive a gradual descent landing. Edit 2. Oh, and also, Malaysia goved his corrupt AF and wanted to hide all the information related to the flight to take spotlight away from them, including providing false information so other countries wasted money searching the wrong ocean before new information was leaked. Edit 3. Also, some random modestly wealthy American is dedicating his life to finding flotsam from the flight in an effort to eventually find the crash site. Probably just a bunch of bioluminescent creatures and small weird looking creatures. Also trash and maybe pieces of unsolved mysteries that happened out at sea. I'd expect to find some kind of artifact or fossil as well that dates back millions of years. I want gigantic sea creatures. To be real course that just be cool ASF. But sadly our friend blue whale will have to do. What about giant squid? Those are real. A squid a joke to you sir? I mean yeah they're scary as well, but I'm talking proper massive stuff you know? Something that'll make me want to leave Earth as soon as possible. I know there's an upper limit because of the square cube law or whatever, but yes I kinda wish we'd find evidence of a squid big enough to casually sink the Titanic. Like all those old nautical paintings of squid taking down ships, just on an even crazier scale. Already kinda thalassophobic, so I guess I'm looking for something to justify it even further lol. Plastic garbage. You are correct. Most people will think of plastic bags and bottles, but plastic breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces. Recent studies have found at the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea up to 2 million pieces of microplastic per square meter. It is virtually certain that every gallon of water on the surface of the earth will contain microplastics, so you are sadly very correct. Isn't plastic degradation into water the reason why plastic water bottles have an expiry date / recommended to not drink them after a certain amount of time? Yep, 2 years, but I usually only give them 3 months. I understanding having a few, but the number we waste is god awful. I wish there was a better solution to long-term external / safe water storage without buying / wasting a bunch of water and plastic every once in a while. I know there are those big jugs, but my dad still buys the bottles as well. Not that much, depending on how you view it. The oceans are mostly vast deserts, so to speak, in that there are very few life forms in the open seas. Obviously there are things out there, but compared to the shores or the reefs, they are pretty empty. The other thing is, once you go far enough out, the seafloor drops a lot, and you don't get sunlight reaching the floor. So there's no plant life for a lot of it, and it's pitch black. But that being said, there are strange and alien creatures in the deep, stuff very unlike what we see on land, or in the shallow waters. Plus, there's the ocean itself, massive currents that affect the entire planet, layers of water with big temperature and salinity differences. Most of the water won't have seen daylight for hundreds of thousands of years. I expect we wouldn't find anything super new or different to what we see now. We will likely find some new species, but as to whether they'll be drastically different to what we already know, well who knows. There might be interesting stuff on the floor itself. We've found new continents and stuff over the years. Just thinking about how deep and dark the ocean really is scary as hell. I mean TBH outside some small fish that are illuminated, like the species in Nemo, there is very low chance of something actually scary down there. Unless they are able to adapt to different conditions of water quickly and can come up to the mid depths for food and go back down in the depths, which I may add is very unlikely. There will be no giant monsters in the depths. Where we normally think monsters would be in the pitch black, there's not enough food for a species to survive with sizes we imagine. No, but this actually scares me. I hate the ocean because of the fact that most of it is still undiscovered. I have no idea what could be down there, and I think that's the scariest thing about it TBH. I imagine some kinds of terrifying fish creatures. If it's any comfort, the creatures down there are used to immense pressure. They couldn't come to the surface, let alone leave the water, for extended periods of time, if at all. And bold claims of thriving sentient life in the ocean aren't realistic either, since we have satellite maps of the seafloor, and we'd have noticed artificial structures like cities. Satellite maps of the seafloor don't even pick up shipwrecks in its current quality, and has huge gaps. So maybe every time something from land returned to water it found good place in food chain. Water is too good of environment compared to surface, and doesn't breed evolutionary adaptations very well. Have you heard of the mystery of the untouchable bathysphere fish? A lucky naturalist in a submarine described several species of unknown fish that are only known from his own detailed eyewitness account and some artists' depictions of the deep sea creatures. He was unable to capture them for study. So, whether or not these mysterious fish were real and out there still waiting to be discovered may forever remain a mystery. The ocean is a big place. Knows what's living in the deepest and darkest depths. Godzilla. Megalodon? A living mosasaur? The bloop? Who knows? Man, you are a little too hopeful for what will be there. The bloop was a whale. Megalodon is definitely dead as we have never found teeth under 3 million years old, and we would see teeth marks on whales that survived attacks. Same with mosasaur. The bathysphere fish is still debatable, but some of the other fish he found may have actually been other now known fish just misdescribed. This isn't to say that there isn't still some unknown monster fish that may still be hiding out there, just that the ones we dream it to be are implausible. There's a great video by the Atomic Frontier on how many sea monsters are left here in case you want to refuel your hope with something that's practical. Huge unimaginable forces of nature at the boundaries of the tectonic plates, where volcanic and subduction forces shape the bottom of the seafloor. There are entire mountain ranges under the oceans we have never seen. There are volcanoes. There is life that lives independently from sunlight, and its metabolism is like that of aliens from other worlds. There is no such thing as undiscovered underwater mountain though. We know the ocean floor's topography up to a few hundred meters accuracy, and that's the worst. Yeah, these formations aren't imagined, and won't be due to lack of light beyond 3D rendering, but that's a different point. But still, it needs to be understood we know how the ocean floor looks like for many decades now. Huge creatures, like the megalodon, couldn't exist that far down. They would need lots and lots of food that they couldn't get way down there, and we would have found at least one corpse. Megalodon. I'm not certified marine biologist with a PhD, but everyone is almost certain those don't exist anymore as they need far too much energy to sustain its size and its metabolism, and at the higher tropic levels unfortunately that disadvantages them cause there's not a lot of energy going their way. Also, orcas. Orcas up sharks, and a megalodon is just a big lazy buffet for them. As a hypothetical, depending on pod size, the orcas might just bypass a megalodon because it would be able to fight back. Do orcas care about lots of life when hunting? I don't really know how orcas hunt great white sharks, but the tactic wouldn't be as effective against something bigger, would it? First off, megalodon did not hatch already as a giant. It would have to grow from embryo to regular white shark size, and then to regular megalodon size, and at each of these steps would be orca food. Second, orcas occasionally kill whales as well, which are much bigger. Third, while we know little about megalodons, sharks in general are pretty stupid and do not fight back. When injured they try to escape, and that is it. Megalodon is not going to engage the orcas in combat, the way say, bear would try to fight off a pack of wolves. It is basically either going to attack an orca opportunistically, or try to run away from orcas when attacked. Fourth, orcas are about half the size and weight of an adult megalodon, significantly smarter, cooperate as a pack, more or less like wolves, and are over 3 times faster than the best estimated speed meg could swim. Undiscovered creatures, lost sunken cities, and quite possibly a few lost nukes from the countless Broken Arrow incidents that have taken place throughout history. Would not be surprised if there were alien craft as well, given how deep the ocean really is and how vast it is. It's quite plausible that aliens have crashed into the ocean and sunk to its blackened depths. There is also a chance the depths of the ocean could contain prehistoric viruses and other pathogens that have been locked away. Lost sunken cities and quite possibly a few lost nukes from the countless Broken Arrow incidents that have taken place throughout history. Would not be surprised if there were alien craft as well, given how deep the ocean really is and how vast it is. Unfortunately, I doubt if that's possible, since we've technically mapped all of the topography and terrain of the ocean with satellites and things. The size of cities and ships would be very noticeable. Since water levels have risen so high since the Paleolithic, I would expect to find a lot of hunter-gatherer sites and ancient cities/settlements. If the Great Deluge legend that so many cultures have in their mythologies is related to the rising sea level, then you'd expect to find a lot of precursor cultural sites just offshore. Honestly, probably not all that much. All the most vibrant and diverse ecosystems are going to be in water shallow enough that plants can get both sunlight from the surface and nutrients from the seafloor. Once the water gets too deep for sunlight to reach the bottom, it kinda transitions to the underwater equivalent of the Sahara Desert. There's probably a little bit of down there scraping on off volcanic vents or what washes down to them from the surface waters, and given the extreme conditions, it's probably really weird and interesting life, but I wouldn't expect the deep sea to have anything like the biodiversity of the Great Barrier Reef. Yes, we've only explored a small portion of the ocean, if you count by physical volume, but if you're counting by interesting discoveries to be made, we've probably explored quite a lot of it. There'll be loads of lost archaeology going back to the last ice age and beyond. Human settlements were, and still are, often on the coast due to the abundance of food, and coastlines constantly get eaten away. We know of many underwater ruins, and most have been lightly studied by divers. We can't easily excavate on the seabed though, so imagine the artifacts that lay buried. We often build on previous settlements as well, so I would expect, if we could excavate the seabed properly, we would probably be able to paint a far more accurate picture of early human endeavors. Maybe even uncover some mind-blowing surprises. No one cares enough to put up the money to develop the equipment and expertise to do it though. Fingers crossed we one day get an Elon Musk type who's more interested in history than space. Near the middle of the Mariana Trench there lies a peculiar rock formation. Perfectly flat, this slab of rock appears to be polished, but unlike the rest of the trench there is shockingly little water movement. Actually, there is a lack of fish and vegetation around this area as well. Our top deep sea divers have been able to date the rock as being around 2 million years old, but that is much younger than the formations above or below it. Well, if this is true then that is absolutely fascinating. Fish, mostly small fish. Inch-long fish with teeth meant for eating other inch-long fish that people will share close-up pictures of and say this is why I don't go in the ocean. Invertebrates ranging from familiar to beautifully weird. Probably some neat geological formations. Keep in mind that, while we haven't combed over every inch of water, a lot of the open ocean is the ecological equivalent of a desert. Most of the life is small and hardy, because being anything else risks starvation. Story time: 2 years ago I went to Galveston, because I love to fish, love the ocean, etc. But I got drunk, and decided at 10 PM, to go out into the ocean during a storm, in a wetsuit. Wade out as far as I can, and start throwing bait. Well, I didn't catch any fish. After a while I was insanely far out, and didn't realize it. A big wave came, scooped me up, and proceeded to scare the living hell out of me. The wave was at least 4 times my height, and as soon as my brain kicked in to breach the top, or drown, I did just that. When I looked behind me, I realized I was so far out that I no longer touched ground and the swells were all that size. The pier was at least 100 foot back towards the shoreline, if not farther. I swam back as fast as I could with bait bucket and rod and reel in tow. When the wave sucked me up I felt stuff rub against me, and I 100% felt as though I was about to die. Scariest experience in the ocean, and I didn't bother fishing again other than on the pier. I don't have thalassophobia in even the slightest, but that made me stay away from the ocean for a long time. Even ignoring the misuse of the word discovered, the entire X% of the ocean hasn't been explored thing is really stupid. What does explored actually mean there? Do you require a human to literally see the seafloor? If so, probably 0.0000001% of the ocean has been explored. What about the vast column of water above the floor? Does a human has to have passed through every cubic centimeter of the ocean for it to be 100% explored? Assigning a percentage like people do makes no sense. We've mapped the ocean floor to pretty good resolution, literally all of it. In that sense the ocean is 100% explored. We've mapped the major currents. We've mapped the surface temperatures. We've mapped all kind of things. Suppose instead of saying we've explored 80% of the ocean, somebody said 50%. Tell me exactly what that 30% difference means. What's its interpretation? Can't be done, because thing line of thinking is childish and low IQ. Stop doing it. I don't know, but I'm not going to risk it. There are several religions that basically say, don't try and go to the deep parts, because those places don't belong to humans but other things, Leviathan, whatever the proper name for the Iranian sea-dwelling menace, Kraken, and on, and if we disturb them, they'll destroy us all. If it was an important enough rule that they wrote it into holy books and legend, there might actually be a grain of truth to it, and I don't want to find out. Things I probably don't want to know about. Heck, the ocean. Just miles of liquid, suffocating, crushing death as far as the eye can see, with all kinds of things in it that are adapted to living in it that can easily kill you. The ocean is just full of death. I'm kidding, mostly. I have no idea what could be down there considering the kinds of weird things that already exist. I do find it interesting for the range and potential of life and resources that can be down there, but same time I have a strong fear of deep natural water, and especially what's in it. No thanks, bye. Thanks, thalassophobia. Deep pool. Cool, I love swimming around the bottom of it. If I could swim around a safe natural area without drowning, that'd be awesome too. If something possible harmful around. So much noping, so yeah, other people can do that. People that don't have that problem. A whole lot of nothing. About as vast as the average person imagines space to be. I worked on a ship in crowded and shallow seas. Most days you could look around in 360 degrees and see nothing but sky above and seemingly empty blue sea below, with an unimpeded view to the horizon where they meet. Now add a dimension of depth to that vastness. Light, and therefore things like phytoplankton, are dominated by darkness to a pitiful depth. Pressure dictates that many organisms simply cannot freely traverse the depths. This is all ignoring the more remote sections of this planet's waters. Consider for a moment Point Nemo. It is a section of ocean with more nothing than anywhere else, 2,688 kilometers, 1,670 miles, from land. Paris to Moscow with nothing out there. The uniform and desolate topography means that plants and animals aren't really out there either. So far there have been 12 notable pharmaceutical products which resulted from marine bio compounds produced by aquatic flora or fauna with medical use that are tough to synthesize, like horsehair crab blood, until recently. There's another 24 currently in the FDA approval pipeline. Some, like shark cartilage, turned out to be fool's gold, but for the most part the undersea plant and animal kingdoms have proven to be a medicinal treasure trove. Atlantis, thought to be extinct sea creatures, sunken ships, treasures, remains of the lost empire of Roanoke, and the list just keeps going. Crazy how we know as much about the oceans and seas as space. So many things that can change life for sure. There's no way there's just something boring down there. There also has to be a lot of information about past life and past human life. I can also imagine all those weird sea animals. IDKY, but I always feel like there's gonna be some sort of huge sea shark or something that's very huge. This is the end of the video. Thank you guys for staying with me till the end. If you enjoyed watching this, you might as well watch these too.